Hi, welcome to episode 8 of Woman of Purpose podcast. I'm so glad that you joined us today. And today I have with me a really, really dear friend and amazing woman, Brittany Juza. And I'm so excited to have her here. Today we're going to talk about this topic of nutrition and eating disorders. And so I'm going to let Brittany introduce herself.
Hello. So I am extremely honored to be here, first of all.
Yeah.
I think of all the women that were on this show before me and how cool to follow in their footsteps behind them. Like Taylor Johnson. As I was leading up to this, I was like, man, how does Taylor talk? How does she talk on a podcast? She has just an amazing voice for this. And so she's definitely my inspiration as we move forward. So a little bit about myself. Yep. I grew up in the area and I had nothing to do with fitness or nutrition at all, besides like competing in high school sports and things like that until 2013, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I was about 20 years old. I started competing in bodybuilding. Okay. Yes, thank you. Yep. So that's basically was the beginning of it all for me. I started competing, and with that, you have to really zero in on your nutrition, of course. Mm-hmm. So even though at the time it wasn't rooted in anything super healthy, that's what got me into nutrition. So I started competing. People started asking me a lot of questions. With that, I was like, wow, I should have good answers for them other than just eat a chicken breast. And so then I started to pursue my certification in nutrition. And so that's
you're a certified nutritionist?
Yep. Okay. So sports nutrition certified, personal training, bodybuilding specialist.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what got me into where we are today.
Yeah. I knew some of that. I didn't know all of that. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So in this topic, Brittany, of nutrition, what is the definition, scientific definition of nutrition? Because, you hear the word nutrition and people are like, nutrition, it's kind of like almost a bad word.
Yeah.
A bad word. So what is the definition of nutrition?
Yeah. I like what you said there about the bad word, because I feel like, people say nutrition and immediately they think diet.
Yeah. But
nutrition isn't a diet. It's a way of eating. It's a lifestyle. Your nutrition provides everything that you need for your health. Anything from energy, the warmth of your body, protection, clarity, that's nutrition, fueling your body. Okay. So that's like the scientific definition would be the process, I have it written down here, the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth.
Okay. I like that, necessary. Mm-hmm. Because nutrition isn't, because I think we do focus on nutrition as it's almost like a negative. And then when we don't know what to do with it, we just don't do anything with it. So I think the proper definition of nutrition is to actually fuel our bodies.
Yes.
It's the proper nourishment to actually help us sleep better, to help us function during the day, to help us, just everything, really. But we don't see it that way. It's like if your car runs out of gas, gas really is the nutrition for your car, in a sense, that keeps your car going. And so that's the scientific part of nutrition. So personally, what does nutrition mean to you? And why?
Yeah. Yep. So nutrition for me is completely taking it and looking at it through God's design.
Okay.
So nutrition originally, like I said, it started out for me of just like, I ate to meet a goal. So I feel like that's what the world does a lot, or people, they seek out nutrition to accomplish a goal, to get where they need to be for a certain event, things like that. That's the eyes of nutrition.
Yeah. If somebody is in a wedding, say,
and
common. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm in this wedding, or I've got this wedding, so I want to lose 10 pounds before the wedding. So then
that was their nutrition was based off of that.
Right,
or for me, it was like I was competing, and I was a personal trainer. So I had to maintain this image of being perfectly in shape. And so I ate according to looking that role, you know what I mean? Versus being like, wait, what is God's design for nutrition?
Because God designed our bodies. And so he designed our bodies. So then it makes sense that he would give us a plan to take care of our bodies.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our cars come with a manual,
Yep. And I've always looked, at least from like my view, I've seen a lot of Christians, or at least myself, also use myself as an example. We separate the two. We're like, oh, I'm a Christian, and so I'm following God, and I want to honor him. And so then I have everything that's complete, because I want to honor God and I'm a Christian, so we're good to go. Or you're on the other spectrum of fitness, and you're just like, oh, I have a healthy body and I'm eating well and my body's, functioning well. And so I'm good to go. And I think it's kind of rare, at least for me, that we intertwine the two, but God did design that. Like you just said, he does have a plan for that. Just like he has a plan for marriage. He has a plan for consumption. He has a plan for how we move our bodies. He has a plan for the church body. We are the church. And so just the same as for nutrition, like God has a plan in that, And so I think that's really, really cool. And back to like seeking God's design on it, we have to seek out that plan that he has for it. Like, what does the word say about it,
Yeah. Yeah. And along with nutrition. So personally, for nutrition for you became a really big deal for you because why did nutrition become, was it always part of your heart to want to eat healthy? Or what was it that really drove you to just have this revelation of like nutrition and food and like what caused that in your life?
So I think the revelation really started to come in when I actually struggled with a eating disorder. So throughout that time of competing and pursuing my personal training business, it seemed like I had everything together, nutritionally, but on the inside I was struggling with this eating disorder. And I could seek out all of the facts and diets and nutrition help books and all the worldly ways essentially to handle that eating disorder. But until I realized that God had a root design for how I was supposed to consume the energy and fuel for my life, until I partnered with that, I was never going to fully be healed from that eating disorder,
Wow.
So that was when the true passion for eating well, for lining myself up with God's design came in. Was when I sought him for it.
It's interesting that you said that, because it was like you really started eating differently before you actually started with this nutrition.
Right.
So it's really like a mindset. So it's like, it brought to me, like I know of several people that have gotten, the surgery done for, I forget what you call it, the bypass surgeries for stomach, the weight loss surgery. There you go. And it's interesting because some it works amazing, but some it doesn't work so great because they never changed their thinking about food. They just wanted to change their body. But they didn't want to change their mind about the food. And so I think with nutrition, I think we think like diets. And I think that do you think that changing our mindset, changing the way that I think about food and the way that I consume food, and even the kinds of food, if I looked at food differently, do you think that would help in the way that I would actually
completely
think about nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely had to shift why I was eating what I was eating. I sought like fame, through competing. It gave me identity. As a personal trainer, that was my identity, to be in shape. And so that's why I ate the things that I ate. But what happened then is anytime I was outside of that reason for eating that, so, okay, I need identity in this. If I was outside of that reason for eating it, then I felt shameful. Versus if I'm eating it because God designed it, that's completely different. There's no shame in that. And another thought that I had with that, see if I can get it back to me.
But nutrition becoming a mindset.
Yes.
It's really changing how I look. Like we're talking about, you were eating healthy for a competition.
Yes. Okay, there was passion. So later as I was coaching, after I already had grown through a lot of this and God healed me through a lot of it, was passion. So with coaching people, I couldn't instill that passion for God's design into people I was coaching. And so then their root view of food remained in a goal or just wanting to be healthier or, just lose weight. Their passion wasn't in God's design of it. And I can't instill that in somebody else. You get that from the Lord. And thankfully God has brought me through that. And so I would say completely changing our outlook from just eating it for a certain reason versus eating it for God's reason. And that comes from passion. I like how with your Women of Purpose, you say you want to empower women.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the same with like coaching. I want to inspire that passion for God's design of how we're supposed to eat, that passion for like how cool he created the world and the things in it. Like even I think of a tablespoon of honey, it is pure sweetness. I mean, nobody's never not liked honey, you know what I mean? But we have a convenient, easy thing to go to in a tablespoon of sugar. But if you can get a passion for what God designed in that, like God created honey. Like, are you kidding me? Like you tell me he didn't have a plan for good eating.
Yeah.
So if I can get people to be passionate about that, or I can inspire that passion, that's when you truly start to shift things.
Yeah.
Weight loss surgery is like, it's a quick fix. It's a quick reason, but it's not the root of God's design,
Yep. And I think that, you were talking about, how you used nutrition to help you get through an event, but when you had that revelation that, wait a minute, all of us, and one thing that I don't want with this podcast and this topic is to bring any condemnation or any guilt on anybody. And for me, we were talking earlier before the show, I was talking about sugar and how I had, I had company for the last few weeks and graduation parties, and I like sweets.
Yep.
And so
Same.
I consumed a lot of sweets, which really affected my body, affected my mind, not sleeping and the sluggishness and all of those things. But how I said that I'm not going to give up sugar but what I want to do is I want to consume it properly. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so there's no condemnation on any of those things. But
Correct.
What I want to do with this podcast on nutrition is help women see that part of my purpose is I can really look at food in a different aspect and say, you know what? I can eat healthy.
Yeah.
I want to eat healthy, not because I want to fit in a dress or because I want to fit in these jeans or because I want to, be in this wedding or because I want to look good in this swimming suit. No, I want to eat healthy because for me, it's like, I'm going to have grandkids someday and I want to be able to run with my grandkids. I want to be able to play with them. I want to be able to sit on the floor and not have the aches and pains, because of nutrition.
Right, exactly.
And so I think that this is so good because what you're saying is that even you, people can look at you and say, oh, you got this great body and, you're whatever. I can never do that. But you don't want them to do like, nobody, that's not the goal in nutrition isn't to look
Correct.
A certain way. It's to look at nutrition and say, nutrition is something that can help me through my whole life and feel better.
Yep. Live well.
And live well and all of it, to be able to what God has designed our bodies to do. He's designed nutrition and food to be able to fuel us. And if we change the way that we think about food in general, where it's like, we eat because we feel good or we eat because we don't feel good and all of those things. But we want to help these women see that part of my purpose is to be able to take nutrition and apply it to my life in a sense and be able to just enjoy life.
Yeah, and have peace in that.
And have peace in that, exactly.
The world is so saturated with opinions and diets and directions. I think that's one of the most common things I get asked about is, well, how do I know what to eat when there's all these things out there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, it's like, okay, let's start with the root of why you want to eat well anyways. What is causing you to seek direction in nutrition? What is causing you to go out and look for a source to eat well? You know what I mean? And if it's not rooted in that wanting to live well for God and wanting to feel well so that you can be there for your grandchildren or your family, to live free of that constant voice in your head of, oh, don't eat that, or this will happen, or you can't, if it's not to live free from that, if that's not your desire, then, it can get pretty messy.
And then there's guilt attached to food, so if you do eat, and I think that's, again, going back to the mindset and how we look at food and the reason why we're eating what we're eating. I mean, it's just, sometimes we look at the word nutrition or we look at the word diet, and they're not the same, but we kind of put them in the same category.
Yeah, we do.
And I don't know how many diets I've been on.
Yeah.
You know, it's always like, I'm gonna be on this cabbage diet. You know, I'm gonna eat cabbage soup. You know, I'm sure a lot of you women listening have done the diet of cabbage soup. I remember the first time I met my mother-in-law. This is the funniest thing in the whole world, but I got to share it. From Louisiana, and so my husband and I, we were in Texas. We met in San Antonio. We got engaged, and then he took me up here to Wisconsin to meet his family. And my mother-in-law, she come up, you know, and she was this bubbly person, and she's just like meeting me. She had this Band-Aid on her forearm, you know, and I'm like, oh, did you hurt yourself? She goes, no, I'm on this Band-Aid diet. And I'm like, oh, a Band-Aid diet, you know? I thought, I've never heard of the Band-Aid diet.
Yeah.
And here she's got a bag of M&Ms and a Coke in her hand, you know? I'm like, a Band-Aid diet? You're drinking a Coke and eating a bag of M&Ms, you know? She goes, oh, and she laughed and laughed. She goes, I guess I forgot I was on a Band-Aid diet,
oh my
you know?
goodness, yeah. But that's about how it is.
It's true, you know, it's true. But really, I think all women, I think, maybe not all women, a good percentage of women, I believe, really want to know the truth about nutrition and diets and what that really looks like. And because I think what happens is, like, when we break a diet, we get condemned.
Oh, yeah.
We feel terrible, and we're like, what's the use?
Right.
I might as well just do what I want to do. You know what I mean? But I want to bring some truth to that.
Yeah.
And just say, you know what? No, number one, you are not identified. You know, your identity does not come in how you look.
No,
it doesn't come in even how you eat. We want to erase all of that misconception of what, you know, that we are, what we are, how we look. And as long as I look like this, because, you know, that's not it at all. But what I want to do is I want to empower women to say, you know what, I can eat healthy, not because of an event or because of something. I want to do it just because it's good for me. It's good for my kids. It's good for my husband. It's just good for my life.
Yep.
You know, and it's not talking about perfection.
No, not at all.
Because it's never perfection, because
that's impossible.
It is impossible. And then it puts pressure on us. And I think that's how we can get into these eating disorders as well.
Yep.
You know, because it's not just overeating, but there's this thing of undereating as well, which we will get to in the next podcast. So anyways, why don't we talk a little bit about how does food affect our life? So you know, we're talking about nutrition, and nutrition really is food.
Yep.
It involves
real
food.
Whole foods, yes.
Right.
Yep.
So you've got a thing of food. How does food affect your life, affect our lives in a negative way and in a positive way?
Yeah. It's always easy to talk about the negative things, but since the world is saturated, you know, with the diets and stuff, I think it is important to talk about that. And I think one of the negative ways is, like, for me at least, it consumed me. You know what I mean? And it still does at times, where I have to really keep things in check, but rather consumed that I was eating healthy foods all the time, rather that was my complete focus, or rather I'd go to a family event, even all I could think about was, oh, everybody's eating s'mores, and can I have a s'more, and will I have a s'more, and how's it going to affect me, and then will I get a workout in tomorrow and combat that s'more that I ate, or I could just have it. Like, it was just this constant battle of consuming.
So do you think that is kind of part of an eating disorder?
Yes.
Because I think we think of eating disorders as like anorexia or bulimia, but that in itself really is attached to an eating disorder.
Yeah.
You know, can I, what happens if I do? You
don't live free,
and,
you know? And it's sad.
Yeah.
You know, like, I would think of that even as I started to, as I healed from it and started to recognize it in the people that I was coaching, you know, and I would just see, like, I would give them their plans, and I would hopefully tell them all the right things and give them all this advice and coaching. And, you know, they would come back with 20,000 questions, and it wasn't to understand, it was to make sure that they were going to do it just right, so that they would make their goal. You know, it just like consumed them too. Like, I ate this one bite of this, and it would just hurt me as their coach to be like, you know, I don't even know what to say to you right now, because until we address that root issue of what's consuming your mind, you know, what is driving that negative thought process, we had to address that before we could even address going on into the real questions about the meal plans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just, that thing of consuming of the mind is a huge impact, I think. So
it's like, really, it's like food can really become like a god.
Yes.
It can really,
Yes,
it really
completely.
can control a person, and it can really make a person, you know, mad, sad, happy. You know what I mean?
I would be irritable with my family. You know, I was like irritable because it was like, I wanted to have a s'more. I use that example, but it's just saying, you know, like I wanted to be able to go and just eat whatever I wanted and not feel guilty about it. But it was like either I had to miss out, or if I did eat it, then I had to struggle with the guilt. So in my head, there was no win-win.
Gotcha.
You know, so I had to learn that there was a way to have balance in it. You know?
That you can have a s'more. There's nothing wrong with having a s'more, but it's kind of like not letting the s'more have you, in a sense.
No, that's exactly
it. You know,
it.
because the s'more, the food doesn't control me. I control the food. I control what comes, how much I'm going to consume of it.
Yeah.
And so I think there's, like you're talking about balance. It's like nutrition really is, it's balancing my life. It's like when I put into my body, you know, the vegetables and the things that I need for my body, it doesn't mean, you're not saying, you know, you can't have this, you can't have that. I think the question you were saying is like, why am I going to have that?
Yeah. Yep.
So why am I going to eat that s'more?
Yep.
Am I going to eat, you know, am I going to eat it because I want that s'more and it's not going to control me, but I'm going to eat the s'more and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yep.
You know, and not have it just continually consume me and now I feel guilty and then I'm going, you know, it's this vicious
such
cycle.
A trap. Yeah, it really is. And back to that question I'll ask myself a lot is, okay, why do I want to consume a food that isn't nutritionally dense for me? I like to say that versus bad, because those words, if you say it's a bad food, then automatically you attach guilt and shame to it.
That's
so if it's a bad food, then why would I make that bad decision versus saying, hey, why do I want to have something that's not nutritionally well for me? And I know that sounds silly. You know, you might create your own question in your head. Yeah. But it's the truth. So then if it's like, oh, because I'd really love to enjoy a s'more with Matt around the fire and I've ate really well all week and I'm feeling well and I know that this won't affect me. Again, it might not be this big of a conversation in your own head, but then it's an okay reason. Yeah. But if it's because I'm feeling anxious, which is often why I would eat bad things or not nutritional things, or to comfort me or to cope with the environment that I'm in, then I need to take a step back and, you know, maybe not have that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. Because sometimes we use food as an escape.
Yeah.
Or this tastes really good. I remember one time hearing this gal say something like, she's just like, oh, it's feel good food.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you know, I'm going to try, you know, and I'm not against any fast food places at all, but it was like, oh, I'm going to go to Culver's because it's a feel good. Yeah. I need some feel good food. And it's just like, feel good food.
I know. I have to bite my tongue when people say that because sometimes they mean it innocently and sometimes I want to be like, no.
But because the reason behind it, it's like, it's not like I'm going to go to, you know, Culver's because, you know, after, you know, church sometimes on Saturday nights, we all go to Culver's and have, you know, burger and fries, you know, and it's just like, no big deal, you know, but when we're doing something for, to fulfill something or to make me feel different, because then that's something, there's something deeper than the food. Yeah. I guess I should say, you know, so it's like something, that we talked about earlier, was that you did food because you were trying to cope. Yep. It's like a coping mechanism. I
didn't know my identity in Christ at all. And so first off, I was coping with things from my upbringing or, you know, things that I dealt with as a child or as a teenager or, you know, a college student, things that were really tough. And so, and then now, you know, I used to bite my nails and then I was an alcoholic for a while. And so then now I'm competing and I can't have any of those things. You know, I can't go have a bunch of beers to cope with things as I was back then. So now the only thing that I could cope with was food, but I could only have a certain amount of food because I was competing. So then so it created this very vicious cycle in my life.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. We're going to end this session of Women of Purpose podcast on this topic of nutrition and eating disorders. And we're going to get into some things in the next session. So stay tuned for the next session of Women of Purpose podcast.